Hey everybody, this is Sean Barber, the author of the Paths of Power series, an apocalyptic Litrpg.
I'm currently taking a break from editing Osgard Founding, and I've decided to take some time to tell you about how I became an author and why I chose Litrpg as my genre. While I may not be a hero nor a villain, this is my origin story. It really all started way back in the 4th grade, back when I was only about 9 years old. Before that point, reading wasn't something that interested me much. This was probably due to my reading level at the time, and I hadn't come across any books that really interested me. But sometime in the 4th grade school year, my love of reading was kindled. Now, I don't recall what it was specifically that changed the course of my life in such a profound way, but I do recall a few books that I really enjoyed. Now, keep in mind, this was back in the early 90s. But it was during that time that R.L. Stine became hugely popular. There was a waiting list to get the latest Goosebumps books at the school library. Those and the book Hatchet that I won as a prize during our Whale of a Tale readathon really stand out in my mind. What I do know is that after the 4th grade, that was it for me. I'd turned into a full-on bookworm, always having at least one book on me at all times. I've progressed from reading Goosebumps and Hardy Boys to Stephen King and Michael Crichton back in middle school. Then I fell in love with science fiction and fantasy, reading the expanded Star Wars universe, The Wheel of Time, the Shannara series, and so many others. I held authors up on such a high pedestal that I even aspired to become one. In high school, I made my first attempt ever at writing a book. I'd only managed 5 chapters back then before losing all of my work to a demagnetized floppy disk. Back then, I didn't even have my own PC and had to store everything on a 3.5-inch floppy, a whopping 1 megabyte storage device. That event put me off writing for many years, though I did dabble in poetry as many of us did. It wasn't until I was in my late 20s, early 30s, that I made my second attempt at writing a book. This time I managed to write half of a fantasy novel, before I wrote myself into a corner and grew disenchanted with my magic system. So it all fell by the wayside. During all this time, I wasn't just a massive reader. I also fell into many other geeky pursuits, ranging from playing tabletop role-playing games to trading card games like Magic the Gathering. These other interests primed me for when I accidentally discovered this strange new genre. I was in the middle of a superhero kick, having just finished Drew Hayes' Superpowered series, when I discovered a strange new superhero-themed series called Super Sales on Superheroes by William D. Arand. The main character, Felix, had the power to view a status window on any object he owned. It enabled him to use his power to upgrade those items. This game-like mechanic fascinated me, causing me to fall down the rabbit hole. I found out that there were many other books like it, and I fell in love with this brand new genre. This was about 10 years ago. Back then, I'd been a truck driver for quite a while. Now, after consuming hundreds of books, finding out my favorite was the apocalyptic Litrpg subgenre, I saw a trend in the main characters, one that led me to ask myself one question. What happens to all the truck drivers in the Litrpg apocalypse? I hadn't seen any at that time, and it was a job I was very familiar with. So I decided to write my own series, about a truck driver stranded hundreds of miles from his home and family. This became my Paths of Power initialization trilogy. It turned out that all I needed to not only write my first book, to actually finish it, was to find my genre. I love the mechanics of RPGs, the hard magic systems, everything about them. I ended up publishing my first book January 22nd of 2022. Now here we are, almost 4.5 years later, and my 10th book is scheduled for release in just 2 weeks. If you've stuck around through this entire video, I want to say a couple of things to you. One, thank you so very much for showing an interest in my story. But most importantly, you can do it. Whatever interest you have, the thing you dreamt of doing, you can still do it. It may take some time, and it may require a few failures along the way. But you can accomplish your lifelong dream. Keep working at it. It took me 20 years, but I eventually did it. Life took me on some strange roads, but eventually I did accomplish my dream. And I didn't stop there. I kept on writing, adding to my library of published books. Don't let anyone stop you from accomplishing yours, not even yourself. Thank you for your time and attention. If you like my content, please like, follow, subscribe, and most importantly, share it with your friends. It's people like you who make this all possible. And thank you again.